Kansas City Sports Update Studios. Welcome to Kingdom Radio, where we talk about all things Kansas City Chiefs. Brought to you by Arrowhead Update. Join Chris and Richard on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Player FM, Castbox, and all third-party applications. Check us out on Facebook platforms such as Kansas City Sports Update and Arrowhead Update. And if you cannot find us there, Google or search Kingdom Radio and Kansas City Chiefs, and you will find us. Welcome to the Kingdom.
How are we doing, Kansas City? I don't know about everyone else in Chiefs Kingdom, but I can finally breathe again. That game yesterday was one of the most stressful games I had ever witnessed in my entire life, and fortunately we came up victorious, which we will touch base on here soon. Welcome to Kingdom Radio. I'm your host, Richard Smith, with my senior NFL analyst and co-host, Chris Chavez. How are we doing this evening, Chris?
I think I have all the feeling back in my fingers and my toes.
I couldn't agree with you more. After yesterday's nail biter, heart pounder, down to the wire, whatever you want to call it, at least we came out with the victory and our sanity. So with that being said, let's get all the promotional stuff out of the way this evening. We want to thank Pizza Shop Platte City, our main sponsor, for having Kingdom Radio's back. We really appreciate everything that's going on there at Pizza Shop Platte City. Like we said, this was a nail biter. I don't know about you, Chris, but I absolutely was on the edge of my seat and up pacing, jumping around, everything that could possibly happen during the game. That was my reaction. So the Chiefs rallied back to win on the road to defeat the Detroit Lions 34-30. It was far from a perfect game, but the Chiefs pulled off the most impressive victory this year. And let's touch base on that just a little bit. I will have to say that I really hope they don't do that again this season. Patrick Mahomes, no touchdowns. That's kind of an anomaly here in Chiefs Kingdom, but it really didn't set us back. So, Chris, kind of touch base on this just a little bit, and we'll move into some other segments here before we really hone in on this game.
Yeah, the Detroit Lions definitely came out and set the tone for the game, driving down immediately and punching it in for a touchdown. Definitely hit us in the mouth and woke us up, or based on how we kind of came out, kind of put us to sleep for a second there. And I definitely want to say that their defense is much better than the majority of the analysts and much of Chiefs Kingdom thought. I did think that they were going to be able to make it a game yesterday. I just didn't think that they were going to be able to make it that close of a game. And kudos to them. I want to give the Detroit Lions a shout out. The fact that they were able to give us probably our most challenging game of the season so far, that's a huge shout out to them. If they can get and stay healthy the rest of the season, they could have a shot to make the playoffs this year.
Hey, that's one of those things that their defense absolutely surprised us, and they came out with a great game plan, which we will touch base on here in just a few. But yes, great game. I'm glad we came out with a win. One of our worst games of the year and possibly Detroit's best showing of the year, and we still came out with a victory. So I'm going to touch base on a little bit of more promotional stuff. This is just a reminder, we will be back at Pizza Shop Platte City for more live podcast watch parties, Week 7 for the Broncos and Week 10 for the Titans. Again, make sure you enter our awesome giveaways featuring signed memorabilia from Tony Gonzalez, Dante Hall, and the legend Derek Thomas. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and like Kingdom Radio to stay up to date with all of our live podcast events. Also, you'll find all of the new Kingdom Radio gear, which is now available for purchase. Men's, women's, and children's t-shirts, as well as Kingdom Radio hoodies. Rep your favorite podcast and help us bring Chiefs Kingdom even more awesome content and analysis. You can view and purchase by searching our link, kingdomradio.itemorder.com/sale. Again, that is kingdomradio.itemorder.com/sale. All right, we're going to move on here. That is enough of the promotional stuff. Let's talk about the NFL just a little bit.
This is Around the NFL, brought to you by Pizza Shop Platte City. Go grab yourself a butcher block. Best meat lovers in Kansas City. Pizza Shop Platte City, proud sponsor of Kingdom Radio.
All right, this is Around the NFL, brought to you by Pizza Shop Platte City, our main sponsor. Go grab yourself a butcher block. Best meat lovers in Kansas City. All right, let's talk about the NFL a little bit here, Chris. First up, a quick look around the AFC West. Take off, Chris. Go ahead and tell us about the Raiders.
So the Raiders jumped out to an early lead and held on at the end to defeat the Colts in Indianapolis yesterday, 31-24. Raiders safety Eric Harris took a pick six to the house late in the game to seal the victory.
Now keep in mind, Chiefs Kingdom, we play the Colts next week. So if the Raiders can defeat the Colts at their house, and the Colts are coming to Kansas City, well, you tell me what you think the outcome will be. But hey, that was I will have to say, an impressive victory by the Raiders, and which kind of moved them a little closer to the Chiefs in the AFC West. So, the Chargers won on the road against the Miami Dolphins. No surprise there. Running back Melvin Gordon was active, but didn't log one carry. Phillip Rivers completed 24 of 30 passes for 310 yards and 2 touchdowns. I don't think that came to a surprise to Chiefs Kingdom. The Chargers took a road victory against the Dolphins. Chris, tell us about the Broncos. What happened?
Gardner Minshew magic happened. The Broncos lost another close game at home to the Jaguars. Quarterback Gardner Minshew led the game-winning drive to set up a 33-yard Josh Lambeau field goal to win the game 26-24.
And I'll tell you what, Gardner Minshew made a name for himself in the game against the Chiefs. And it just seems to be a name that you keep hearing more and more. I know that the Jags aren't exactly having the season they would like, but they're not really doing too horrible. Broncos, on the other hand, well, I like what I see out of the Broncos. We can just go ahead and keep that trend up, because I'm sure everybody in Chiefs Kingdom would like to see the Jags over the Broncos. So what's that put the Broncos now, 0-4?
0-4.
0-4. That's a great number. That's a phenomenal number here in Chiefs Kingdom, because we are 4-0. So it seems fitting. John Elway, you might want to give the reins over to somebody else. Just throwing that out there. And with that being said, let's move on to our next segment.
This is the No Look Pass, brought to you by Sean and Keto Music Solutions, providing everything from simple background audio to complex creative audio pieces. Bring your project to life with Sean and Keto Music Solutions.
All right, this is the No Look Pass, brought to you by Sean Akio Music Solutions. This is a segment where Chris and I give each other a football question off the top of our heads to kind of show Chiefs Kingdom what is in our mind. Come pick our brains here real quick. Chris, my No Look Pass to you tonight is, did you expect Detroit's defense to show up against Patrick Mahomes like that? That's part one. Part two, do you think Detroit exposed Kansas City in any way, or they just had a great game?
Okay, so answer A. Oh man, hold on. What was the first question again? I was going automatically straight to B. What was the first question again?
And the first question again is, did you expect the defense for Detroit to show up against Patrick Mahomes like they did?
I did not expect them to blank him. I definitely expected him to throw 2, maybe 3 touchdowns, but for them to blank him, that was pretty incredible. What they did in order to shut him down, so to speak, I mean, he threw for 315 yards, so can't necessarily say that was shutting him down. But and this is going to kind of touch on the part B of your question, I do feel that they kind of did expose a weakness on our offense that no other teams have really been able to take advantage of this year. And that if you get physical with our wide receivers and push them out to the boundary, push them off their marks, and mess up their rhythm, that messes up the entire flow of the offense. And so I'm going to be expecting here for at least the next couple games for teams to be trying to emulate that and repeat that success against Mahomes and our wide receivers.
Which I hate to hear any type of weakness in the Chiefs' offense, but let's be honest, Chiefs Kingdom. I think that we sat here and watched a game that made us have some questions in our mind as to either one, the play calling, or two, what was on Patrick Mahomes' mind. It really, there's a lot of overthrown passes, a lot of frustration. This game was uncharacteristic of Kansas City. Now, I agree with what you're saying, Chris, but at the same time, I also feel like it was self-imposed by our offense as well.
Yeah, I could definitely understand that. I mean, the early frustration and definitely carried over and led to some self-imposed mistakes.
Right.
But overall, their defense really frustrated us early on, and then just kind of stepped up when they needed to. I mean, we had that. Excuse me. We had that touchdown to, I believe it was Sammy Watkins. And the quarterback came in and just punched that ball out. And so we lost out on that touchdown. Little things like that, they add up, and that really led to that frustration that carried on throughout the rest of the game.
I'll tell you what, I will say one thing about the Detroit Lions. They were ball hawking fools that game. They punched the ball at any opportunity that they had. And they took advantage of every opportunity they had on defense. And that's something I'd really like the Chiefs to hone in on, which we'll talk about that a little bit later, because I'll tell you what, Rashad Braylon had a heads-up play. That was probably the biggest play in the game, but we're going to touch base on that here in a little bit. It was definitely a touchdown. But here, let me ask you this, Chris. What's your no-look pass for me this evening?
Okay, so couple big, what's the word I'm looking for? Roster fatalities yesterday in the AFC West. Chubb for Denver went down with I believe it's an ACL tear. He's out for the season.
Partial ACL tear, but yes, he is out for the season.
And as well as Vontaze Burfict.
Suspended.
Suspended for the rest of the season due to another dirty hit on his part. Which loss do you think is going to hurt their respective teams the most for the rest of this season?
Who was the first one again?
Bradley Chubb.
Chubb or Perfect? Well, considering neither of them are contenders, this is kind of a hard choice for me. I feel like that, Bradley Chubb probably has more of an impact on Denver defense than Perfect on an Oakland defense that is, I don't want to say mediocre, but not as good as Denver. Honestly, Chris, they might have, and this is really close. This isn't fair. You asked me two divisional teams that are, two of their star linebackers. I in the long run, it probably is going to affect both of them evenly. Neither of them are playoff teams, but they can be spoilers. It's hard to be a spoiler without your premier linebacker playing every down, much less, 0 snaps for the rest of the season. It's going to have a huge impact. It's going to hurt the Broncos' season even more, and definitely have an impact on the Raiders. I don't know if that answered your question, because they're both pretty big impacts.
Yeah, no, they both are. And the way that I look at it is Bradley Chubb is the Broncos' leading pass rusher. They still have Von Miller, but Chubb has become the guy for Denver. He's the one who's expected to get all of the sacks.
Right.
And losing him thrusts Von Miller back into the forefront, and teams can now just focus on him. They don't have to worry about both ends. They only have to worry about one side. Whereas Burfict, he's never been a pass rusher. Or he's just a guy who lays out big hits on running backs, and we'll say wide receivers coming in and tight ends that are crossing across the middle. And losing Burfict is going to have a much less effect on the team performance side, but you're going to be losing some level of leadership. I mean, going back to that wide receiver and the GM's fight that they were having, and Burfict is the one who stepped in and held off the wide receiver. Whereas you look over at Chubb, he's probably he doesn't come across as a leader, but he's definitely a top performer on that Bronco team. I think the loss of Chubb is going to have a bigger effect on Denver's season, which is kind of hard to say given that they're 0-4. But I think that at some point they would have been able to put things together. Now, I think that they might as well just be racing the Miami Dolphins for the number 1 pick overall.
And that could hold true. You know, there's definitely a lot of football left, but let's be honest. The Broncos are going to have to go a solid, 9-3 to finish out the season to even be in the spot for a playoff berth and even a wild card. And I don't think that's going to happen. So, yeah. With that being said, okay, that is the no-look pass, Kansas City. I know everybody wants to talk about this game that we played yesterday. So let's get into this crazy, I don't even know the right word for it. Chris, help me out. What's the right word for this game?
Off the top of my head, it would not be something that would be appropriate. Let's say it was a perfect anomaly of football.
Fair enough. The football gods are definitely in favor of the Kansas City Chiefs because, look, Patrick Mahomes did not have his best day ever, but he still completed 24 of 42 passes for 315 yards and a goose egg on the touchdown board. And let's be honest with you, I keep bringing Alex Smith up, and I'm going to bring him up again. If Alex Smith had a 315-yard day with 0 touchdowns, Kansas City would be happy. So just throwing that out there. But I don't think anyone in the country expected Mahomes not to throw a touchdown. The timing obviously was off with the receivers. There were several throws that I'm sure Patrick would love to have back. And this is only the second time in Patrick Mahomes' career ever where he didn't throw a 30-yard plus pass. And so, despite the tough game, Kansas City Chiefs rallied the troops, and kind of brought us back, and we had a game-winning touchdown drive to move the Chiefs to 4-0. So, Chris kind of touched base, on the second quarter the third quarter that we had. That was probably the wildest third quarter since year 2000, and not just with the Chiefs, but anybody in the NFL with as many fumbles as there were in the third quarter.
The best way that I can explain it is at halftime, I think the referees went and decided to get a hot potato and play with that the entire quarter because neither team wanted to hold on to the ball. I believe we had a total of 5 fumbles in just that quarter alone between the two teams. The Chiefs had 3 and Detroit had 2. I can't even explain it. Did the football become a greased pig or something? Nobody could hold on to the ball. It was incredible.
Hey, but I'll tell you who held on to the ball on one of those fumbles because Bashaud Breeland returned that fumble 100 yards for a touchdown when the Lions fumbled on the 1 yard line on that running play. So I will say that we did come up on top on these fumble recoveries and, turning turnovers into points. Now, it could have gone any way in that third quarter, and we've jumped way ahead. But it's hard not to hone in on a 5-turnover quarter, where, let's be honest, that Breeland play, that was heads up. Everybody had stopped and given up on that play, thought the play was over. On the 1 yard line, he fumbles, and he comes in, scoops it up, and takes it down the sideline, and back into midfield, and scores a touchdown. And then the play was reviewed, and look, the play stood. That was a heads-up play. That was a fumble. It was put on the ground, and I'm glad Breeland saw it because it could have just as easily been a touchdown.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was a very heads-up play. And I will say, give the refs kudos for this. They didn't blow their whistle. They let it play out, and they let it go to the review. And absolutely, the review guys got that call correct.
Yes, and I will have to agree with you on that one. And look, I'm going to move back to the first half here because I have to say that in the first half, it was the Shady McCoy show. He really burst out onto the scene. He had, a 33-yard run to kind of get him going in the game. And, in the first half, I believe he had already rushed for 70-some yards. And it felt like that might be a big day for him, which kind of proven to be true here later in the second half with a hook and ladder from Travis Kelce, which we'll get to here in just a few. But let's talk about the first half here. What did you think? I know that you didn't get to catch the second half, but let's touch base on the first half. Let me know what you thought.
So I definitely think that although McCoy definitely set the tone with that big run that he had for 39 yards, the rest of his and Williams' running game was basically negated. So overall, and I'm going to break down the stats here for the whole game because I don't have just the first half. But for the entire game, the Chiefs rushed the ball 25 times for 123 yards. But if you take away LaShawn McCoy's 139-yard run, we end up having like a 3.8 yard per carry average, which loses us 1 yard per carry. McCoy, you take away the 39 yards off of his 56 yards, he's got a 1.88 yard per carry average. The Detroit Lions definitely stepped up against our running game, which forced Mahomes to have to throw the ball a lot. And then also going back to what we were saying, and not necessarily that he was inaccurate, but he had to adjust his normal rhythm for throws, and he seemed to struggle with that a little bit because he was throwing the ball further downfield than where the wide receivers were.
Mm-hmm.
Where he was not necessarily behind the wide receivers, but he was just not where the ball needed to be.
No, and he seemed off. You take Patrick Mahomes and all of his glory, and you tweak that a little bit, and that's what happened yesterday. He was just off, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the dome. I'm not sure what happened, but yeah, he just could not. He looked like Jackson the week before. He looked like Lamar Jackson playing the Kansas City Chiefs, last week, and it was tough to watch. But there was also, I'm worried about our offensive line. I feel like our front five is really, I don't want to say in question, but I feel like they have a lot to prove here in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, no, and I definitely understand that. But another thing to also keep in mind is that at this point we're 4-0, and every single game that we have played, we've played against an undefeated team.
Right.
And I mean, obviously, like, you know, the first week, the Jags, they're sitting at 0-0, but, I mean, we've played teams that are undefeated every time we've played. And, you know, to come out of that basically unscathed, and we're still 4-0, that's a huge testament to where we're at. And I don't have the stats right in front of me as far as how many sacks Mahomes has taken this year, but it's not that many. Especially when you look at guys like Watson, who's sitting up there with like 15, 20 already this season.
That's a great. That's a great point about Kansas City beating, you know, all undefeated teams. I really like that point that you brought to the table, because I think that you know, is a cornerstone to, you know, what we should be proud of here in Chiefs Kingdom, because I think everyone, including myself, might have overlooked the defense just a bit. And they came up with a great game plan that really neutralized what makes the Kansas City Chiefs what they are. They took away our deep threat and collapsed the pocket, which clearly affected Mahomes' accuracy. You know, it was a tough game for Kansas City. What I love about this is Kansas City probably had the worst game that we've had in the last year and a half, and yet we still came out on top.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Another thing that I wanted to touch on was we showed our grit.
Yes.
Because I mean, we were down towards the end, and Andy Reid touched on this in one of his pressers. But the guys just came together, and they knew, they had this feeling that they could trust in each other. When guys fumbled the ball, they were there to pick each other up, and they had the confidence that we can and will still win this. And you know, not to harp on him, because I mean, I really appreciate everything that he did for us, but would our team have that sort of look in the eye if Alex Smith had been our quarterback?
Absolutely not.
And the answer is absolutely not. And with Patrick Mahomes back there, like we said yesterday in the pregame, with Mahomes at quarterback, all things are possible. And on that final drive where he let us down, yeah, he didn't throw it for a touchdown, but he put us in a position to win. And the players did what they need to do, and they put the ball in the end zone for the win.
Yes, and look, that's definitely a testament to, you know, everything that's Patrick Mahomes and what he brings to Chiefs Kingdom here and in the future. You know, that's a huge deal. When you are shut down all game long, no touchdowns, frustrated all day, and then you still come in the last drive and you take us downfield and you win the game for us, hey, that's the quarterback that I want behind center for the Kansas City Chiefs. And really, let's be honest with you, I think this was kind of a statement to the NFL, if they look at it the right way, that, hey, you better look out for the Chiefs, because even when Mahomes is off and they're still playing a good team, which I'm gonna say that Detroit has a good squad, but we're off, we're playing a great team who was undefeated, and we still came out on top. Look out for Kansas City, because that's a testament to the coaching, that's a testament to the players, and how disciplined everybody is on that roster.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, I really have to give it to Stafford. Although he undergained Mahomes in yardage, he definitely every inch of this, when I say this, looked the seasoned veteran on Mahomes' level at quarterback yesterday. And at times of the game, he actually looked better than Mahomes. He didn't throughout the entire game, but man, he was slinging that ball around with tremendous confidence yesterday.
Yes, he was definitely more composed than Mahomes was in that game, and I will say that that was clearly evident. And that's just one of those things, that game plan that Matt Patricia came out with. look, I'll give it to those boys. They came out and played some football. But like we said in the pregame show, no matter what, they don't stack up against Kansas City top to bottom. Now, defense, they showed me a little bit more than what I thought they had in the tank. But also, this is a Tyreek Hill-less Kansas City Chiefs. So that's another thing that we have to keep in mind. And it's also, we're missing our left end as well. Chris.
Yeah, sorry. Fisher.
Yeah, and so another thing that I want to touch base on here, we get Morris Claiborne on the Chiefs roster for the first time next week, and so I personally am excited about that, especially with what we saw from the defense this week. Ogba looked great again. Okafor got himself a sack. Really, and then, hey, that big sack by the Honey Badger at the end of the game to give us the ball back, that was a huge play that I do not want to go overlooked. I mean, that was the biggest sack of the day, especially after that quarter where, look, after halftime, we came out and fumbled the ball immediately on the kickoff. And that was something. McCole Hartman put the ball on the ground. We gave it right back. So then I believe it was Matt Stafford who fumbled the ball, and Chris Jones picked the ball up. And then we're driving, and gosh, who fumbles the ball then? I believe it was Williams fumbled the ball, gave it back. Then Detroit drives back down the field, gets to the 1 yard line, then they fumble, and then that's when Bashab Braylon picks up the ball and runs it in for a touchdown. And so that quarter was just as wild as it got, but our defense still stood strong. They held their own because, look, we created 2 of those turnovers in the third quarter. One of them was returned for a touchdown, and honestly, I feel like was probably a turning page for the Chiefs to put Mahomes in a position to win the game for us, especially since Buckner missed that field goal early on. He really needs to hone in on his kicking this year because I feel like he's kind of dropping the ball just a bit.
Yeah, well, and kind of like we had talked about with Mahomes being in the dome for the first time, this could have been Butker's first kick in a dome since college. I could be wrong there, but I got a pretty good feeling that that's where it's been. He didn't kick in a dome all of last year, and so it's definitely a different feel. Coming from a soccer background, kicking on grass and kicking on turf, it's got a very different feel to it. And if you don't do it consistently enough, and you're not comfortable with it, it can mess with your kicks.
Well, hey, if they're both, lacking, in the dome play ability this season, I will say that I'm glad that the Colts are coming to Arrowhead next week. Of course, we love to play at home, and I don't know about you, but I'm not really too excited to go back into a dome this season and play a game after what I saw yesterday. I mean, as long as we come out on top, that's really all that matters. We all love to see Patrick Mahomes have a better game, but let's face it, we won 34-30. We went to Detroit's house, and we took home the victory. So, look, that was a grinded-out, tough game that Kansas City could have easily lost. So I'm extremely excited for us to be 4-0 right now. We have the Colts next week at Arrowhead Stadium for Sunday Night Football. It'll be a primetime game, and the Colts are 2-2, and they're coming off of a loss like we talked about earlier to the Raiders. So that should be an exciting game for Kansas City. I feel like that we have a lot. I don't want to say a lot to prove, but if you're Mahomes and you're the Kansas City Chiefs, the Indianapolis Colts better look out because Mahomes is coming out on fire next week at home.
Well, and in addition to that, we're going to have to keep an eye on the injury report. But two of the Colts' big defensive players, their safety and then their star linebacker, both of them were out yesterday with injuries. And so if they're still out next week or Sunday night, that could definitely be very fortuitous for the Chiefs. But, I mean, we definitely don't want to put the horse before the cart or let that play out and then do what we need to do.
Yes. And hey, I don't want to put my foot in my mouth and, say that the Chiefs are going to run all over the Colts. I think it's going to be a lot easier game for the Chiefs than the first 4 weeks. And I really, really look forward to this primetime game at Arrowhead. But look, let's also be realistic. Primetime football for Patrick Mahomes has not gone the greatest either. So we need to pick up the slack here a little bit in Kansas City and move forward. We're going to put this game behind us. Chris, really, is there anything else that you would like to touch base on this game against, the Lions?
Just one thing that I'm starting to pick up on that has me slightly concerned is the special teams play of the Chiefs is not up to the level that we're used to with a Dave Toub team. And I'm really hoping that things start to turn around mid-season because if things continue, I mean, we're going to keep seeing a lot of 80, 90-yard drives that Mahomes and company has to put together. And, I mean, the shorter the field, the more points we can put up. I really hate seeing these long drives.
I couldn't agree more with you, and that just puts emphasis more on how bad we need Tyreek Hill back in the Chiefs lineup. It's a huge deal. It got exposed this week. I think the first 3 weeks we kind of got away with it without any question. But look, this Lions defense is real, and anybody who comes up against this defense, just know that they're no slouch, and they deserve the 2 wins that they have right now. That was a great game against the Chiefs. I'm sure Chiefs Kingdom will not forget that game at all this season. When we come up, we can't overlook any team in the NFL. I just want everybody to keep that in mind. But still, we came out with a victory. We're 4-0, and we're going to look forward to this Colts game here on Sunday Night Football. So, Chris, thank you for being on here tonight. We're going to go ahead and wrap this show up. I always love talking football with you. And really have a great night, Chris.
Likewise. I will talk to you later on this week.
All right. Thank you, Pizza Shop Platte City, Arrowhead Update. Again, thank you, Chris, and the Kingdom Radio crew. And, of course, last but not least, Chiefs Kingdom. None of this would be possible at all without all of the fans. So, I am Richard Smith, host of Kingdom Radio. Look, we grinded it out this week, Kansas City. We got a big game coming up. Get through this work week because we have Sunday Night Football. You're going to be tired for the work week after because it is at Arrowhead Stadium. Get ready to tailgate and drink some beer. Rest up because it's going to be a long week, Kansas City. Have a great night.
Thank you for tuning in to Kingdom Radio, your go-to podcast for everything Kansas City Chiefs.